Hello there. Recently I was looking on the internet for a map I could use for a specific project, but all of the ones I was turning up were inadequate in some way. A lot of them were inadequate on a very basic level, but even the best of them seemed to sort of convey a false image. I was thinking about the problems with these maps, and I came up with an idea, and I don't know if it's a very good idea, but it is interesting enough to be worth sharing. Let's demonstrate with a very crude Photoshop map. First off, we got two villages along a river, Green Village and Purple Village. Now, if we say that these two villages have equal territory, we could come up with a map that looks something like this. Most maps in existence sort of look like this, but more complicated. Thinking things through, I realized that this type of map in and of itself is a big part of my frustration, because this type of map dictates the way we think about territory. To sort of demonstrate what I'm talking about here, let's devise a map that instead of using squares and angles, it uses circles. Occasionally you can find a map that uses circles. These typically depict a community, city-state, village, whatever, with a small sphere of territory surrounding them. These two give a sort of false impression because unless there's a lot of villages, most of that territory is going to be empty. This implies that nobody's using it, nobody lays claim to it, which is wrong. So instead what we can do is we can expand those spheres so that they're touching, filling up most of the space. But still, there's a lot of empty corners. Circles don't fit together very nicely. If we expand them evenly so that all the empty space is filled, then we're back with our square map. I thought of a solution for this. What we need is two circles. The inner circle, let's say it's 1 day's travel on foot away from the village. This is the core territory, the impermeable territory. The outer circle represents sort of soft territory. Territory which is utilized but nobody really lives there. This soft territory can overlap provided it doesn't touch the core territory. This type of map allows us to fill the entirety of the map nicely while still using circles. Notice how within this framework, the idea of a border means something very different than within a square-based map. If the two nations are on friendly terms, this space in between might represent shared territory. Let's use the example of dish with one spoon territory. You're both allowed to hunt and fish there, but nobody's supposed to settle there. If, on the other hand, the two nations have an antagonistic relationship, this might instead represent a vast no man's land. It's not like a small border, it's not a line in the sand that you step over and you're suddenly in enemy territory. It's a big, fuzzy area with 2 days travel across. A buffer state, a use at your own risk state. Let's expand this idea into a more complicated map. So here we've got 4 nations with 3 villages apiece, even circles around each village. We expand the circles to fill all of the space and we get something extremely messy. I don't see mess as necessarily a bad thing, it communicates complexity. The important question is whether it accurately conveys something real. I need to do a lot more reading before I can answer that, but hopefully you found this interesting.